Seems almost surrealistic, this extravagant wedding reception, this merrymaking, barely 2 hours before the first air raids on Baghdad. In fact, in the Palestine Meridian Hotel where I was staying, this was the 70th wedding reception in the past month. The most plausible explanation is that young people had waited long enough during the 8 years war with Iran. They cannot wait very much longer.
We are dancing and singing, and our life is normal. We don't care. We never scared. We born in the war, and we are ready for the war. Anytime they want, but we like the peace.
كل عراقي وكل عربي ضد الاستعمار والصهيونية لتحرير البلدان العربية المستعمرة وبالأخص فلسطين واللي هي قضية.
She said that she feel that born this day, this first day for her born, and she are fighting, and all the Iraqis they are fighting for all the world and for the Palestinian and for Julan and Egypt and on all the countries, and she feel that she born this day, and they are ready for fighting for our religions and our life here.
Inshallah. And I will send my present to our president, Saddam, because we are ready to die. We born to die for the right.
Tomorrow it will be normal day as today and as yesterday.
Any day, same, all same, believe me. Very strong, we are very strong. My God, يعني بس انت كمل هذا الحكي اللي حكيته.
She said that you are going with the religion, with the Quran. The Quran said if anything happened to us, it's from the God. And we are accepting anything for us. Anything, the word, the fight, anything, we are accepting it from the God. If you fight, it's coming from the God. And if we came in the peace, it's from the God. Allahu Akbar.
Earlier, the streets wore a somber look, but there was no difference in the crowds at the cinema houses of Baghdad. Even at the old theatre off Al-Rashid Street, in the green room, the actors were being made up for the night's show.
months.
About 2 months?
Yes.
Every night?
Yes, every night. But this play, it's begin before one year and 5 months.
And you think tonight is any different from the last 2 months that you've been acting?
For our feeling, no.
And in the shops, the typical Iraqi combativeness, an almost nonchalant anticipation of war.
كلنا احنا الحمد لله والشكر قلبنا مطمئن مرتاحين وعوائلنا مرتاحه وذي شيء ببيوتها لكن ما ترهبنا اي رهبه اللي يجي من الله هو يتلقى الارض واحنا مستعدين لامريكا والصهاينه عدونا احنا اول شيء اسرائيل ونحب السلام احنا محبين للسلام احنا اول شعب العراقي هو كله يحب السلام لكن اذا يجبرونا هم يعني يرغمونا على الحرب فمجبورين احنا نحاربهم ونصدم ان شاء الله مثل ما يعني الشعوب اللي مثل ما خاضوا معركه بفيتنام بالتالي متى طلعت فاشله هي امريكا من فيتنام احنا نفس الشيء راح نكون اكثر من فيتنام عندنا تجارب وعندنا خبره حرب ويا ايران 8 سنين الله سبحانه وتعالى نصرنا ونصر القائد مالنا صدام حسين نصر القياده نصر الجيش وان شاء الله نتحمل هاي الازمه اللي مر علينا خلال هالفتره وان شاء الله احنا مطلعين منتصرين عليهم بعون الله وتعالى بقوه الله ورسوله واهل البيت احنا ايماننا قوي بالله الله هو احسن من كل شيء اذا رايد تصير هاي الكارثه تصير واذا ما رايد هاي هي احنا منتصرين عليهم بكل الحالات شعب قليل احنا الحمد لله والشكر شكرا.
Well, Iraqi is very well known for all the people. We are peace lovers, but the people who are good with us, we are good with them, and who are our enemies who try to do something bad for us, we will crush them. But we are peace lovers. We are looking for peace. But if we are emerged for this, if we be enforced for this catastrophe, we are ready for that. We don't scare from America or even greater than the United States. We are ready for them. We are ready to defend our land, such as we are already experienced with 8 years war, and we bear that war, and we are ready to bear that. Our faith in the God and in our leadership, our leader, President Saddam Hussein, God save him. And we don't want war, but if they forced us for the war, we are ready to crush them. And what's God looking to do? If God wants this catastrophe to happen in this area, we are ready for her to bear and to cause the Americans much damage and much troubles.
What did he say about Vietnam?
And it will be its experience with the states. They tried to fight the Vietnamese, but they failed in that war, and we will do it more than the war of Vietnam. We will cause much damage for the states that they had in Vietnam.
The river Tigris, witness to many upheavals, looks quite oblivious of what is in store, as do the bazaars and the streets of Baghdad.
اعتيادي ما يختلف لان احنا عندنا الايام اعتياديه طلعت الصبح حلقت وجهي وسبحت وطلعت للشغلي اعتيادي.
For me it's a normal day. I did the same I do every day. I took my shower, I shaved, I well dressed, and I came to my job.
وأنا كلي تفاؤل بأن الأمريكان والغرب والأساطيل اللي موجودة وجيوشها راح تتخلى عن مبدأ الحرب.
I'm optimistic. I think that all the troops, the American troops, with their ships and weapons, they will take another decision. They won't fight.
There was unusually brisk buying in the supermarket, possibly in anticipation of the impending war. Schools and colleges had been ordered to remain open to keep up the popular morale. And then those peace marches organized by the state, which in effect were no peace marches at all, but rather a demonstration of people's will to fight. The expiry of the January 15 deadline has dramatized the situation everywhere in Iraq. Here in Baghdad, peace demonstrations have started. These are basically exhorting people to rally behind Saddam Hussein to fight the infidel.
We come today in here in order to say to all people in all worlds, we are like Saddam and we are like Iraq, and we are died and live in Baghdad, not leave it, no, never. We will stay. I think the people of America also not like the war and not like Bush. Also, they are have many people will die when we come to war. I think they will maybe they do something.
Only Bush.
Only Bush, we don't like it.
Obviously, the most important is to have a presence here to show that there are people from nations like the United States and Britain that do care about your people, they care about humanity, and they don't want any form of fighting to try and settle political disputes.
The Indian embassy echoed to the lamentations of the 116 Indian nurses stranded in Baghdad. For 5 months, the Indian embassy tried to obtain their exit visas, but without luck. Savita Sharma, one of the nurses from Chandigarh.
हम लोग यहाँ अप्रैल में आए थे, एक साल के इराकी गवर्नमेंट के कॉन्ट्रैक्ट के हिसाब से, तो हम लोग को अप्रैल से लेके मार्च तक का यहाँ काम करना था, लेकिन यहाँ का हालात कि अच्छा नहीं मिला। सैलरी हमारी कोई रेमिटेबल नहीं है, जितना भी पैसा हम लोगों को मिलता है दिनार में सैलरी मिलती, वो भी घर पे नहीं जा सकती। इन लोगों ने हम लोग को 3 महीने के बाद फैमिली वीज़ा देने के लिए बोला था। उसके बाद 3 महीने के बाद तो जैसे ही 3 महीने ख़त्म हुए तो ये प्रॉब्लम शुरू हो गई। तो जो इंटेंशन से हम लोग आए थे, वी कुड नॉट अचीव दैट गोल। मीन्स सैलरी भी रेमिटेबल नहीं है, छोटे छोटे बच्चे छोड़े।
रेमिटेबल क्यों नहीं है?
देयर इज सम प्रॉब्लम इन दैट दिस थिंग विद द गवर्नमेंट ट्रांसफ़र ऑफ मनी ना, तो वो कुछ जैसे भी इनकी प्रॉब्लम थी, हम लोगों का पैसा भी कुछ वो नहीं होता है, रेमिट नहीं होता है, तो हम लोगों ने इन लोगों को बोला था भेजने के लिए, लेकिन गवर्नमेंट के साथ कुछ ऐसा है कि ये लोग कह रहे कि प्रॉब्लम है एग्जिट के लिए। तो हम लोगों को 4 महीने हो गए यहाँ, इन लोगों को कभी रेजिग्नेशन दे दो। मैंने 6 बार खुद रेजिग्नेशन दिया, 3 बार छुट्टी के लिए भी अप्लाई किया, लेकिन अभी तक किसी तरीके से भी हम लोगों को रिलीज़ नहीं मिल रहा था। एम्बेसी से भी हम लोग 4 महीने से कॉन्ट्रैक्ट रखा हुआ है, लेकिन बीच बीच में कभी काम होता है कभी नहीं होता है। बेचारे ये लोग भी उन्हीं की वजह से होल्ड हो रहे हैं कि गवर्नमेंट ही हम लोगों को रिलीज़ नहीं कर रही। अभी लास्ट में हम लोग यहाँ 7 दिन हो गए लगातार यहाँ बैठे हुए हैं, दिन भर रात। हॉस्टल में ना तो हम लोग को ढंग से खाना है, ना कुछ और है, ना कोई किसी के पास भी चले जाओ हमारी जिम्मेदारी किसी के पास है ही नहीं। जिससे पूछो वो सभी यही कहते हैं, आई एम नॉट रिस्पॉन्सिबल फॉर यू।
Actually they did cheating, and after coming here there is no remittance. Now so we wanted to go back. Since the day when we came, that day itself we wanted to go back. When we came here only we came to know that it was a cheating actually. So we cannot remit money. So we can collect the money, the dinar, minimum it is 120 to 150.
That is just 150 dinars, like a tissue paper with us. We cannot remit, so what we will do? Everything is so costly here, 150 dinar, you cannot buy even 2 dresses.
Just family visa के लिए मैं आई थी, husband और मेरी 1 daughter, छोटी सी है, 4.5 साल की है।
Me, I left my 2 kids, 3 years old daughter and 2 years son.
No, अब तो नहीं जाना चाहती हूँ कहीं भी।
क्यों?
क्योंकि एक बार तो सारे होप तो टूट चुकी है।
That afternoon, President Saddam Hussein paid his eve of the war visit to his troops in Kuwait. Like everything else President Hussein does, it was an extravagant, highly advertised visit. For full hours, Baghdad television was filled with nothing else.
شلونك ويا البحر؟
And as the drama builds up to a crescendo, at the Masgoof shop, the special fish restaurant, drunk customers have the final feast.
طلع برا طلع هناك برا وخليني هنا أنا. شنو رأيك علقنا؟
احنا ما نريد الحرب.
We don't need
حرب مو زين. هاي الشباب يحبوا الحرب مو زين. يصير عصب يصير وكح.
اما اذا يدعون دول الربع كلهم يطلعون من شمال القص وغيره احنا نفوض بيناتنا.
نصعد بالسير خاطر هو الله تشلب. نصعد على كافي اخرب محمد. هذه ليش اخرب الله تشلب؟ انا معود ما تروح انت؟ امشي انت الله تشلب.
Then those flares and the frightening thud of ack-ack guns. The mood in the air raid shelter in our hotel, as elsewhere, was almost unreal. Unlike the hotel, the shelter was well lit, obviously on a private generator. There was some anxiety, but no real fear of panic among the people. In fact, there were pockets of almost perverse, possibly nervous cheerfulness. The Indian staff in the hotel had made a small corner for themselves. At what time did you hear the bomb? What happened? What did you see?
We saw some sparkles. We went out.
No, you were describing the Oberoi hotel.
Yes.
The hotel. What?
We went out when we opened the window and we saw through. We could see some sparks. And then when I saw through the Oberoi direction, I felt like we were playing video games. The missiles coming up and down.
At what time did you come to this basement?
The basement?
The shelter?
No, before we came here, we went to the basement in the staff house. And around 5:45 we came.
Are you afraid?
No, so far we are normal.
How many times did the raids take place?
I think about 3 times.
At 2:30 a.m. on January 17th, the Gulf War actually began. And when the first bombardment took place, I was in my bed and I woke up with a start and we lurched to the balcony and there was this shimmering, brilliant fireworks, looked like a fireworks display with tracers and flares, and I thought it was an exercise. I rang Nihal and he thought too it was an exercise, so we went back to sleep. But about 15 minutes later, the intensity and the ferocity of the bombings became so powerful. I rang the desk, the reception clerk, and he said, "This is American, this is American warplanes attacking us." So we lurched 6 floors down to the bomb shelters in total darkness, and there we saw all these ashen-faced guests and hotel staff frightened, sitting silently. Somebody had a pocket radio. I was playing BBC News, and that was when we heard Operation Desert Storm had begun. Now, we stayed there for about 6 hours until the morning when there was a lull in the bombardment. We were all pretty frightened, and during the lull, a lot of the press started evacuating to the Al Rashid Hotel. We also decided to move from Al Mansur Melia to the Al Rashid. Now, we were in a real fix because the Al Rashid management insisted that they were going to accept only US dollars in cash. No traveler's checks, no American Express, no credit cards. During the brief lull, we took a drive around the city, and Baghdad was virtually deserted. We didn't know what the damage was, but there was the smell of maybe cordite, but gunfire. And when we came back, we noticed a perceptible change in the attitude of the so-called Ministry of Information officials, who were our minders, who chaperoned the press. they became very tough, and they said, no photographs, you cannot move out without permission, you cannot file anything, and you cannot stir out of the bomb shelters. So it was life in Al Rashid bomb shelters, which was full of maybe several hundred men, women, children, Iraqis, other Arabs, Sudanese, Indians, and the hotel staff. Everyone was sleeping on blankets, and the first night we spent 14 hours on a cold stone floor with a jacket thrown on top of us, and it was very disconcerting that we were paying $130 for this luxury. There was no food, there was no water, there was no electricity, and we just dozed off, I suppose, in fits and starts. And the next morning, there was, all through the night there was heavy bombardment. And next morning we discovered that the damage had been extensive. During the lull again on the 18th, we managed to go out, and the problem was we couldn't negotiate the prices that the American television networks were paying for the private taxis which were going from Baghdad to the Jordanian border, which is about 800 kilometers. Usually it would probably cost about 300 Iraqi dinars, but the CBS and ITN and BBC and CNN, they were willing to pay up to $5,000 US, which is unaffordable for for an Indian journalist. So we stayed on, and the relentless bombing continued through the 18th, and by the 19th, conditions at the Al Rashid basement had become unspeakable. Next day morning, like a guardian angel, one American journalist, Mike Kirsch of the CBS, he was going to Jordan. He had hired a car, and me and Nihal, we latched onto him and finally said goodbye to the bomb shelters.
Well, American journalists were everywhere. The Philadelphia hotel where Ramesh Chandran and I stayed in Amman was also the headquarters of the CNN, which has put in everything it has into the coverage of the war. 3 floors of the hotel had been taken over by the CNN. About 300 reporters and technical hands are covering the war, or at least trying to cover it, because the war is being fought under a heavy blanket of censorship.
CNN has also an international service that is seen in more than 85 countries around the world. In terms of the number of people involved over the period of time and the number of flyaway dishes that CNN has put into operation in the region, this is quite easily the largest operation. So all in all, specifically concentrated on this story, there must be close to about 200 plus people working on the story constantly. No, there's no premium as such. There is war zone insurance, but there's certainly no extra pay. Everyone who works in the war zone are volunteers. No one is forced to come here, and in fact it's company policy that anyone that does not want to be here does not need to come. If they come and they change their minds, then they're quite free to leave, and it's a very open system. Peter Arnett has been given permission by the Iraqi authorities to file his reports by telephone at least, we believe, twice a day, depending on the current situation. There's no guarantee that he can always file his reports on the telephone every day, but he has so far, on average, been able to file 2 reports every day and a half, as it were, 3 reports every 2 days. And while conditions remain the same and he is able to operate and file his reports, and he has access to a special telephone, then we hope that he will be allowed to continue. The CNN's international feed is seen in all the areas of the war zone. I believe that the Iraqi leadership is still in a position to see CNN. President Bush has been monitoring CNN for many months. Obviously now with this crisis, he has to stay tuned with what is going on. He is going to learn more quickly from CNN when there is a missile attack against Saudi Arabia, probably, than from his military in the same area. So stay tuned.
But for a Jordanian perspective on the war, one has to visit the Jordan Times, Amman's English language daily. Jordan Times has on its staff P. Vivekanand, an Indian journalist, who has his own ideas of what the non-aligned foreign ministers might do in Belgrade day after tomorrow.
So what we have is a very pronounced gap in the non-aligned movement. Now the Yugoslavian foreign minister came here and he had some kind of an initiative, although nobody knew what shape or form it had. Obviously, when you start talking about Iraqi withdrawal from Kuwait, first of all, that's not going to wash anything here, anything with Iraq. There has to be a comprehensive formula.
Belgrade may look like a side show in the context of the Gulf War, but let us not forget, an Iranian initiative is currently being commented upon, and India has been in close contact with Tehran and other non-aligned countries. While it would be unrealistic to be euphoric about Belgrade, it might also be a mistake not to contemplate the non-aligned meeting, at least with some degree of hope.